Hey, it's me, James, and in this video, we're going to be doing the lightning round oracle card pull session for Capricorn season. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this video. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. As I said in the opening, this is the monthly lightning round oracle card pull session, and we're going to be focusing on Capricorn season. As I am filming this, it is December the 18th, 2023, so we are going to be transitioning from Sagittarius into Capricorn, so I thought I would be a little bit ahead of the game instead of usually trying to catch up, which has been my mode over the course of the year as I've been presenting this series. So for the deck selection, I'm very excited to present to you all that I have created another deck, and so the deck that we are going to be working with for this session is my brand new Intuitive Carotmancy Deck. So now this is inspired on my cartomancy practice. When I first got into card reading, I had a dream, and it was a significant dream. It was a dream that I was reading playing cards, and I was sitting at a table, and I was reading the cards for myself, and I was taking notes. The significant thing about the dream is that I had never done that in waking life, so I just knew that on some level, I was being called to become a card reader, and playing cards was going to be the particular mode or medium or system, yes? And so I've kind of wandered away from the playing card system and kind of come back every now and again. And so over the course of this year, I really felt the urge to really delve more deeply into my cartomancy practice. And this, I think, is a great expression of that. What really got me into designing the deck, because I had thought about it over the years, is the working on my version of the popular Gypsy Witch fortune-telling playing cards, which I shared in previous videos in the more recent past. But that design process really got me thinking about working on creating a playing card deck, but in that vein or in that manner. So I'm very excited to present the cards. So I have the cards on the table, and these are the card backs in case you want to see that. So these are what the card backs look like. They are playing card size, and they are linen cardstock. I'm just over the moon with how they turned out. So as I'm shuffling the cards, if you're just joining me for this series, the way it works is that I pull one card for every zodiac sign, and that becomes your message for the month. And what you could do is, if you know what your sun sign is, your moon sign, and your rising sign, then you could take the messages for those three particular signs and give yourself a 3-card reading. Okay? So I'm shuffling the cards, and I like to shuffle the cards somewhat on camera so people can see that the cards are indeed being shuffled. Okay? So now I have my table right here, so now I'm going to also shuffle on the table. You will hear, hopefully, the cards being shuffled. And as I'm shuffling, I'm just focusing my intention on each sign receiving the message or the guidance or the insight that is going to be most helpful and beneficial as we each move through this Capricorn season. So I'll do 2 more times. Now I'm cutting the deck because you can't see that. So I'm cutting the deck and putting it back in one pile. And so now I have the cards, and what I do from this point on is I just draw right from the top of the deck for each consecutive sign. I also have my list here because I can never remember the order of the signs. So I always have that, and then I will always cross that off after we talk about each consecutive card for each sign. Okay. So starting with Capricorn, this is for Capricorn people, and for the rest of us, this might be a message to consider as we are moving through Capricorn season, kind of like maybe a focus card, and then your particular sign card will kind of maybe further elaborate on that, right? Okay, so now the card we have here is the Jack of Diamonds, and so now the way the card is designed is that the standard card, the playing card, is an insert, and then I have an image. I've chosen one image from the many meanings. I said one image. I've chosen one image to represent the card, but it comes as like one meaning of a list of meanings that I have for the card. It's not saying like this is the only meaning of the card, right? It's just the one that I felt inspired to present as the specific or particular image for the card. So having said that, so the image for the Jack of Diamonds is a spirit medium or psychic medium. Yes, because for me, one of the meanings of the Jack of Diamonds is that can represent spirit communication or psychic communication. Yeah, so I went with the image of a spirit medium who's conducting a seance. There's two people on either side of her and conducting a seance. So this could just be if you are a person who communicates with spirit, meaning like you're a psychic medium, spirit communicator, things like that, then this is really talking about that particular ability, and you working with that specifically over the course of the season, right? If you are not a medium, this just represents considering if you are a spiritual person, how you communicate with spirit. This could just be a message to really pay attention to the ways that spirit communicates with you as you communicate with it, right? Things like that. It could just be saying that there's a specific spiritual overarching energy for you this month, or a spiritual undercurrent for you this month, right? So there's that. If you're not a spiritual person and the idea of a psychic medium or a spirit communicator does not work with you, does not resonate with you, then this card is really just asking you to pay attention to information that comes your way, because all the jacks for me are representative of news and messages. This one in particular would be news and messages that are valuable, meaning that they have some significance or importance, right? Or they're about more material matters or even money or financial. So I would pay attention to things having to do with money and finance, your physical well-being, right? Because health and well-being would fall under the domain of diamonds for me, right? Or something having to do with real estate or property, anything that is tangible, right? As I'm saying that, I'm also being reminded that this suit, diamonds, is all about values, meaning your value system, right? So there may be something about your value system that comes into play, right? So there may be a message about paying attention to what it is that you value this season, right? Especially with the holidays coming up. I said I'm filming this on the 18th, so we have Yule coming up, and we have Christmas coming up, and then we have New Year's after that. So you may be in the energetic space, because diamonds are about energy. You may be in an energetic space to really being focused on what's important to you, what matters to you, what's of value to you, right? And maybe sorting out what is and isn't at this point in time, right? So that's what I want to offer for Capricorn, and this is the Jack of Diamonds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cross Capricorn off the list. Okay, now the next card is for Aquarius, and for Aquarius we have the Nine of Clubs. So for me, just as I talked about with the previous card, this is a card for me that talks about our journey in life. That's what the open road symbolizes, right? It represents our path in life, our journey in life, right? So for Aquarians, this might be the time to consider the progress that you've made, because clubs as a suit for me represents progress, right? So this is a card in that regard that talks about, coming a long way. So it could just be a matter of time, or this is the time, to just note how far in your journey you've come, right? The 9 is a number of gain or attainment. So what have you gained? What have you attained at this point in your life's journey, right? And this card may be asking you to take some time to celebrate that progress, yeah? So there's that. This card is about the spiritual journey. It's about the emotional journey, the psychological journey. So if the spiritual aspect doesn't work, it just may be a matter of, taking some time to consider how far you've come in terms of your mental landscape, right? The thinking that's going on, and in accordance to that, because psychology is not just about what you think, it's about the behaviors that are in alignment with those thoughts, yeah? So it's about like really just taking some time to honor that process. And it could also be, again, with the idea that New Year's is coming up over the course of this particular season, that may be like, where do you want to go from here, right? What new intentions do you want to set on this road or on this path in your life, in your life's journey, yeah? Or at this stage in your life's journey. It's maybe giving some time to do two things. Celebrate how far you've come, and then consider where do you want to go from here, right? So that's what I want to offer for Aquarians with the Nine of Clubs. Okay. So now everybody knows who's been watching this series for some time, I'm Piscean, so I always get excited to see what the Pisces card is. So let's take a look. For us, we have, and I say us, meaning myself and my fellow Pisceans, we have the Queen of Spades. Okay, so now, this card can have dual purposes, right? Because spades for me is the suit that can represent problems, difficulties, challenges, blocks, obstacles. You got the idea, yeah? But it's also a suit that can represent the mind and thinking and consciousness, yes? Okay, so it has twofold, right? Not every suit is all good or all bad, right? They have some of both, right? So now, we may, and I say we mean me and my fellow Pisceans, we may have a woman, because I read the Queens in Cartomancy playing cards as women, so we may have a woman who's going to play a central role or part in the unfolding of events over the course of Capricorn season for us, yes? So, some descriptors. For me, the Queen of Spades can represent a woman who is maybe a little bit difficult or problematic in terms of dealing with, or she's going to present us with a particular problem, challenge, or difficulty. Yeah, it could go one or two ways. Either she brings it, or she is part of a challenging situation, right? She plays a central role or part in it. Not necessarily that she is personally difficult, but she could be. Okay, so there's that. The other thing here is that she is single, because for me this usually represents a woman who is single, separated, divorced, or widowed, which is why I have her draped in black. She's wearing all black to signify the possibility of maybe the grief that comes with that separation process, yes? So there is that. The other thing is that she is based on her image. There's something about responsibility because her jacket is draped over her shoulders, and for me the shoulders represent responsibility, right? So there is that. So either she has some level of responsibility, or there's going to be an issue about responsibility, and she's going to be the focus on that, meaning like the possibility of somebody who's not accepting responsibility, right? Because her shoulders are not bare, right? For me, that would be a pun for like bearing responsibility. So it could be somebody who may be avoiding, some kind of responsibility for her role in a situation that's being presented to us. So there's that. Now, if I don't make it about the literal, like it's not a literal person, then more metaphorically, this card is asking us to take a look at our level of responsibility over the course of this month, and maybe divorcing ourselves from things that we think we need to have responsibility for, right? So there is that. It may be just checking all the things that we believe we are responsible for, or maybe the people that we believe we're responsible to. And are we really responsible for those people? Maybe it's about allowing people to become more responsible for themselves. Yeah? And would we be willing to do that? Right? It could also be going with the divorce aspect. It could be a person that we are either one or two things, either needing to divorce ourselves from, meaning like we need to create space or maybe some better boundaries with a person, a woman in particular, since she represents divorce, right? Or that there is an estrangement between ourselves and another person, maybe in particular a woman, that maybe we're thinking about, or maybe we're considering the idea of working on, resolving to some degree. There's that. And then I know her to be, like, I call her the feng shui queen. So going with that, it's about creating space, you know? So what energetic space do we need to create for ourselves, right? So that our lives flow better. That for me is like the idea of feng shui, right? It's about, energetic placement so that the energy flows much better in and out your life, in your surroundings, but also in your life, right? So there's some other ways metaphorically to look at the Queen of Spades, right? And now as I'm saying that, it could also be too that there may be something that we're being presented with, because she's wearing sunglasses, right? Dark glasses, that we may need to take another look at. For me, this idea sometimes with sunglasses is that it represents maybe an unwillingness to see something. And this may be the time to take a closer look or a better look at it, meaning the situation or the experience, yeah? So that's what I want to offer with the Queen of Spades, and that was for Pisces. Next up we have Aries, and here we have the Ace of Clubs, and in the image I have the legal documents that set up the founding of the United States of America, right? Because one of the meanings for the Ace of Clubs, it can represent legal paperwork or legal documents, but it can also represent being in service to the country, right? And it would be, if you're not from the States, as you're watching this, then it would be in service to the country of your origin or where you are currently residing, yeah? So there is that. But for me, this represents, and I'm going to go more with the idea of New Year's occurring during this season, right? So it could just be a matter of what new intentions do you want to set for yourself, right, in your life, right? The ace represents the potential for the future. It also represents a new stage, the beginning stage of something, and a period of initiation, right? You get the idea, right? So they just be saying to, like, maybe this is the idea about laying the foundation for new intentions for your life and how you want your life to unfold, yeah? And I'm in the literal sense, it could be that people are considering the idea of either immigrating into the United States, or maybe immigrating into another country, because all of a sudden I'm thinking about the idea of expats, so that could be a thing. And then if that's the case, then it's about making sure you have your things like your passport, your visa, all those kinds of things that you would need to either travel or relocate to another country in place, right? And now if it's none of that resonates with you, then it could just be a matter of there may be some important paperwork or documentation that is going to need your attention over the course of the season, right? For myself, I think of things like, because clubs is the suit of work and business, I think of things like maybe my business license, yeah, for my business. I may be thinking about, getting the ball rolling with all the paperwork and documentation that comes with getting my taxes prepared, all those kinds of things, right? But for the most part, I'm going to go with the overall message that this may be a time to really consider the foundation that you want to set as you embark on the next stage of your life. Much like the Nine of Clubs, right? I believe the message is the same. It's just being presented with a different image. But this would be about starting something, beginning something, initiating something, right? It may have to do with either work or business, like I've touched on, or it may have to do with something public or something social. The reason for the image for me, because I believe that the United States, the way it was founded, is a great social experiment, right? And I believe that we, as United States citizens, are now needing to take another look at this particular social experiment. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But this is the Ace of Clubs for Aries. Next up, we have Taurus. For Taurus, we have, we have the Jack of Clubs. So now we had the Jack of Clubs as the first card for Capricorn season. Now we have our second Jack. So, you know, I believe that, you know, sometimes if I take a look at the cards as a whole, there may be a theme. So now we have two Jacks repeating. So now Jack's for me about news messages, right? And it's also about learning stages of development, yeah? As people, they can also represent younger people of either gender. So going with that maybe first. For Taurus people, there may be some focus on someone who's younger than you, right? Could be male or female, right? And someone who has something to say. In the image on the card, I have a podcaster, right? Because for me, the Jack of Clubs is a person who broadcasts messages that are for the public, right? Remember, the suit of clubs for me represents the public and something social. So there may be something about public messages or messages that are geared towards the public, right? Or social messaging, and that would be social media, right? So this could be a literal, like, someone's thinking about doing a podcast or somebody has a podcast, right? And this may be the time, the season to maybe consider what material would you like to present to your listening audience or your viewing audience if you do it using video as well, right? What material would you like to present to your viewing and listening audience that would be of benefit to them, right? What message do you believe they need to hear, right? And would you be willing to present that, right? So that's for podcasters in particular, but it could just be anyone who has a platform and has a message to share with an audience. This is your moment to reflect on that material. You know, it makes me think, going back to the podcast, some of the podcasts I listen to are like labeled or distributed in seasons, right? So I'm seeing it like that, like you may be wrapping up a particular season in your podcast series and you're thinking about the material to present for the next season, yeah? That's kind of the gist I'm getting with this card in this moment, right? But it could also be for the rest of us. This is a time to really pay attention to the sources that we are getting our information from, yeah? I mean, we live in a day and age of, and I'm not intending on getting on a soapbox here, but we live in a day and age where there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about a variety of topics. I'm not just talking about stuff on the national or international scale, right? There's potential for, no matter what the subject matter is, to be misinformed and to receive disinformation. So I think for all of us, the message with this card is really paying attention to who we are allowing to broadcast messages. Who are we listening to? And maybe needing to take a look at those sources, you know? Because they're you know, if I go with it further, because they're shaping our thoughts, they're shaping our opinions, yeah. And so it could just be a matter, we may be giving certain voices more weight than they need to have. So that is the Jack of Clubs. I thought I was done. I'm not done. If you are an employee working for the man, meaning like you work out in the world for a company, corporation, firm, then this could be highlighting your particular work, and it just may be a matter of there may be something you need to voice about the work that you are doing, right? I'm going with the idea that he's mic'd up, right? So it's about amplifying something, you know, allowing your voice to be heard. So there may be an opportunity for your voice to be heard in terms of the work that you were doing within an existing company, corporation, or firm, yeah? So now I'm feeling complete with the Jack of Clubs. That, like I said, that was for Taurus. Next up we have Gemini. For Gemini, we have a lot of face cards in this session. So here we have the King of Spades. This for me is the Judge card, right? Which is why we have a judge in the image, right? So one of the two things is, this could be, in the literal sense, somebody is going before the judge, right? So it could be a matter of a legal matter that is getting resolved, right? Because the judge is a person who renders a verdict or makes a decision, right? So there could be that aspect going on in terms of an actual legal proceeding, right? If it's not an actual proceeding then. It's more metaphorical. You're getting the message here to really be mindful of being judgmental and critical of others, because another meaning of this card for me is critical thinking. Yeah, so it could just be a matter of you are being mindful to pay attention to being judgmental and critical of others, because I'm a big believer, especially with this card, as you judge, you will be judged, right? So it could also be the converse would be, facing the judgment and criticism of others, right? So it could go two ways. And if that's the case, if you're on the receiving end of judgment and criticism, it could be as a result of your beliefs, your thoughts, your opinions. And it may not be that they're bad. It could just be that the people who are judging and criticizing are just not in agreement with those, right? So there's that. So really for me, this card is about having a judgmental attitude, a critical attitude, and maybe needing to work with that over the course of the month. Maybe how can you temper that? Maybe how can you soften that kind of thing. Or if you're on the receiving end of judgment and criticism, just be mindful that, it may stem from just the idea that not everybody believes the way you believe, and not everybody has to be in agreement with your particular beliefs or your opinions, right? But I also don't want to rule out, see what I did there? I don't want to rule out the possibility that it could just be a matter of making an important decision. And if that's the case, then this is about, if I go back with the legal and maybe more justice aspect of it, then it's about weighing the pros and the cons. That's what the judge does. Weighs the facts and the evidence being presented to him or her, and then they make a decision based on the evidence, right? Nothing else than the facts, figures, the evidence, yeah? So, but it's about making a well-informed decision. You can only do that with the information being presented to you at any moment in time, yeah? Okay, so that is what I want to say about the King of Spades. And that was for Gemini, like I said. Next up, we have Cancer. For Cancerians, we have a fantastic card. I love this card. This is the Nine of Diamonds, and one of its meanings for me is extra money coming in, and you can see that symbolized with the open hands, receiving all those coins, yeah? So this is about extra money coming in, and the thing about this is that it may not be money that you necessarily worked for. So I'll give you some examples. I call this the state money card. So it could be like you get a refund, or it's about collecting unemployment, or it's about collecting disability. You get the idea, right? So it would be something like that. Or it could just be a bonus, right? We are moving into this time of the year about Christmas. So it could just be, you have extra money coming in the form of gift cards, yeah? Or you get a bonus at your employment. Or if you're self-employed, you may get some gratuities from clients and customers that maybe you weren't expecting. So there is that. Now, my other meaning for this card, and this is one I particularly love, it's much like the Jack of Diamonds, which was the first card out the gate. This is a card for me that talks about psychic ability. Yeah, and so I specifically went with the open hands, meaning the idea of being open and receptive, right? Psychic ability works with the idea about receptivity, right? Because you're receiving psychic or intuitive information, yeah? So the hands are just suggesting being open and receptive to that form of information, yeah? But the coins being silver, silver is a color for me that is associated with intuition, right? So it's a color that represents psychic ability and intuition for me, right? So it could just be a matter of being open and receptive to maybe more intuitive forms of information, psychic form of information, or just acknowledging the fact that you are an intuitive or psychic person, much like the first card talked about, being a psychic medium, yeah? So there is that. That's what I want to say. This is a card that talks about material gain or attainment, again, because we have the number 9. 9 is a repeating number. Remember, we had the 9 of clubs earlier on, right? So there's something about gain or attainment. But it could also be, you gaining something that is going to add or increase the value in your material world, yeah? So that's what I want to offer about the 9 of Diamonds. That was for Cancer. Next up, we have Leo. For Leo, we have, okay, here we have the Seven of Hearts. Okay, so for me, this card, the Seven of Hearts, is all about second chances. And what I love about the image is that I have a couple, right? And so we have the one man embracing his partner, right? And when I found the image, the story made me feel like he was being willing to give his partner a second chance, right? And in doing so, he's also giving himself a second chance at love, right? Because the suit of hearts can be about love and romance. I kind of maybe broaden that to talk about our feelings, our emotions, and the ways that we relate to others, right? This suit is about relationships, but relations, right? How we relate to other people, right, on an emotional level, because there's a variety of relationships. Most people think with hearts being about love, automatically go to romantic situations. Not every situation is romantic. Not every relationship is romantic, right? We may have love for a person and it's not romantic love. That's my point, right? So it could just be a matter of, in some particular cases, you may be presented with giving another person a second chance in a relationship with you, right? 7 in cartomancy for me is a number that can represent spirituality, right? So there may be a spiritual undercurrent to this, right? Or it can represent improvement, right? So it could be willing to give a person another chance to improve the relationship, yeah? So there's that. Now, the fact that there's two men embracing on the card, that can be symbolic. If I go more with the spiritual aspect, could be about embracing a particular way of thinking, right? For me, men, symbolic, it can represent our thoughts, right? Our minds, our logical, rational, analytical selves, yeah? And then women would represent our more feeling natures, our emotive natures, our intuitive natures, yeah? So, but the fact that a man is embracing another man, it could be embracing a particular way of thinking, right? So it could be embracing an idea, a concept, a theory, right? And seeing how you could work that into your life, meaning apply it to see how it would work on improving your life, just generally speaking, yeah? Now, this is also a card that talks about pleasant surprises. So I'm seeing people embracing, and it makes me think, like with the holidays coming up, maybe we're going to see people that we haven't seen in some time, right? And we get to catch up, especially if it comes as a surprise. Like you were not expecting to see a particular person, and that person kind of walks in the door, right? Or kind of just shows up, right? So that's a pleasant surprise, right? So again, for me, this card can represent either giving another person that you are in relationship with another chance, or they may be willing to give you another chance, right? I always go with the idea like it's always about the other person, right? But it could be like you may be given a second chance in a relationship, right? Or it could be about healing a relationship, right? Hearts are about healing, right? Improving a relationship so that the energy of it can be healed to some degree, right? So there's that. But it could also be about pleasant surprises. So that's what I want to offer with the 7 of Hearts. That was for Leo. For Virgo, we have the King of Clubs, another face card. So here we have the King of Clubs. So now for me, the King of Clubs, when it shows up, can represent a man. Typically for me, all kings in cartomancy represent men. So this could represent a man. And usually this is a person who wants to be helpful. Now remember, this is the suit that represents the public and something of a social nature, right? So this could be a person who wants to be helpful. So this could be a public figure or somebody who has some sort of social influence, right? Kings are people who have influence, right? Power, control, authority, right? They are leaders. So it could be somebody who maybe has some sense of influence, right? Who wants to be helpful to you over the course of the next season, right? Or it could be that there is a call for you to consider working for yourself. This is the card for me that represents the business person, right? So it could be about being in business for yourself. And maybe going back to the social and public aspects of it, it could be about a business that is, socially conscious, yeah? Because we do have social conscious entrepreneurs out in the world doing their thing, right? So it could be a matter of maybe you are thinking about joining their ranks, right? Now, if that's not the case, and maybe you are not an entrepreneur, for me, this could be a boss, a manager, leader, supervisor in an existing business, yeah, or work type thing, where either A, you are a manager, supervisor, leader, and the fact that he's sitting on steps could be a matter of maybe sitting on the idea of moving up the ladder, right? Seeking a promotion, right? And maybe that is maybe a goal that you're thinking about in the course of the coming year, right? So there is that possibility. Or there's going to be some dynamic going on with a person who is in a position of leadership in your maybe department, in your company, that kind of thing. Maybe you are doing some work with this person, or there's some sort of dynamic that we need to work through, right? Because the suit of clubs is not just like work or business. It's things that maybe we have to work at or put some effort into, right? Especially if we want to see some progress, right? The steps are reminding me about the idea about progress, right? So it could just be saying, if I just go with the steps as a metaphor, maybe what step do you need to take? What would be your next immediate step you need to take in order to make progress in your life? And that may be in the business sense, but it also may be in just the business of life, yeah? So that's what I want to offer with the King of Clubs. That was for Virgo. As I'm putting the card down, I'm going to come back real quick before I get to Virgo people. Excuse me. So I'm noting that he has a pad and a pen or pencil in his hand. This could just be a matter of taking some notes, writing some things down, or maybe putting pen to paper and maybe thinking about writing something that may be of help to the public overall. So it could be a book. It could be a book, a memoir, a guide, something that would serve the public at large. So that's what I want to now say with the King of Clubs. And I'm back. Full disclosure, I noticed as I was wrapping up for Virgo that my little indicator was blinking on my view screen, saying that I had like 0 minutes left. And before it cut out, I figured I'd just go ahead and exit out, clear out some previous video material that was no longer needed on the camera, and then come back. So I am back. And now we're going to pick up where we left off. So we finished with Virgo, and I haven't checked yet, but I'm hoping that that was not cut off. And if it was, I'll have to do some editing magic at some point. But we're just going to pick up and do Libra, because we have Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius left. And then we can wrap up this session, yes? Okay, so now, going back to the deck, card for Libra is another face card and another jack. So here we have the Jack of Spades. So now we have 3 out of the 4 jacks that showed up, yeah? So this particular jack is known as the troublemaker, right? Because it's attached to the suit of spades. So, suit of spades, remember, represents problems, troubles, difficulties, right? So this is the troublemaker, right? Or the rival. That's one of the 2 possibilities here. In the image, I have a person who is a detective, right? Because remember, spades is not just about problems and troubles. It's all about the mind and consciousness, yeah? So for me, if I go with the image of a private detective or a detective, then this could be about needing to investigate something further, right? You don't have all the information, because now remember, jacks are about news and messages, so you may not have all the information you need at this point in time regarding a particular matter or situation, right? It could just be a matter of you investigating to get the information that you need. Here we have him on his cell phone and with his camera, right? Because in the traditional standard playing card image, the jack is holding a spyglass or an eyeglass, right? So it's needing to look at something more closely, right? Or needing to take a closer look, or maybe a larger look, right? Because going with the idea that a magnifying lens magnifies what you're looking at, right? And enlarges it, right? So it could just be maybe putting a larger emphasis or focus on a particular perspective that you have, right? So there's all of that. But the phone represents, paying attention to information that's coming in, like, so this would be maybe voice messages, voicemails, text messages that come on your phone, maybe being mindful of the communications that you are having with other people, right? Especially in this day and age of cell phones and smartphones, right? Maybe be more selective, or maybe a little more mindful about the conversations that you are having out in public. You wouldn't believe, I work in retail, that's one of my jobs, and you wouldn't believe the things that I hear people talking about in open public spaces on their phones. And I go, really? You want the public to hear you talking about that like that? It just makes me shake my head, right? So it could just be a matter of being more mindful about the conversations that you're having, especially when you're out in public, right? Right. It could just be a matter of maybe even just generally speaking, be more mindful about the communications, the words that are coming out of your mouth when you are interacting with other people, right? So there is that. So again, this for me is about investigation. You need to investigate something further, right? And here's the other thing too. Now, if I go with the idea about being a spy, then this could be about are you in the activity of minding other people's business, right? Are you, invested in finding out things about people that have nothing to do with you at all? And if that's the case, then maybe consider the idea of how is that working for you, right? Are you getting yourself in more trouble than you need to be, right? I am a fan of the work by Byron Katie, if you're familiar with that. There are 4 questions that are part of the work. The one that has always resonated with me, and the one that I always go to in certain situations is that your business? That's question number 2 out of the 4 questions, right? Is that your business? More often than not, the things that we engage in, especially things that involve other people, are not our business. And so I always ask myself that question when I'm feeling like I want to involve myself in something that doesn't maybe directly involve me. And I have to go, James Mitchell, I use my full name, James Mitchell, is that your business? And more often than not, the answer is no. Right? So now, the other thing I will say, and I'm coming back to the image here with the camera, it may be something that you need to take a look at, right? The camera here gives him perspective, right? He's distant, right? So he's removing himself from the situation, but still being willing to take a look at it, right? So it could just be a matter of you stepping back from a situation or experience so you can get a better picture of what's going on, yeah? That just came to me and I like that, yeah? So in what ways could you step back so you can see the bigger picture here? And then maybe respond and react to the bigger picture, yeah? That's what I want to offer with the Jack of Spades. All right, and that was for Libra. Next up, we have Scorpio. And here we have the 8 of Diamonds. Now, this is twofold messages, right? So, going with the image, for me, there's ledgers, there's expense reports, income reports, things like that. All the things have to do with money and finance, yeah? So there's these reports underneath the glasses. So the first thing is about financial records, record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting, right? So it could just be a matter of the literal message here is, pay attention to your accounting. This could be a matter of if you're not in business and you don't have to worry about accounting in that scheme of things. It could just be a matter of, are you balancing your checkbook, right? Are you aware of the money that's going out, and are you keeping accurate records of income and expenses? Yeah? Right? So there is that. But this is about, again, record keeping. So if it's not about actual ledgers, business accounts, financial accounts, it could just be a matter of needing to keep a record or a documentation of something, right? So that's the first message with this. It's all about bookkeeping, accounting, things of a financial nature, right? But with the idea that I want to have a better sense of money that's coming in and money that's going out, right? As a result of, becoming more organized, or so I can be more organized, because the 8 is a number of organization. It could be organization in the business sense, like an organization, right? Or it could be I'm needing to act in a more organized manner, yeah? So that could be just organization in that sense. Now the glasses. So the glasses, because the 8 of Diamonds can represent spectacles, right? And spectacles is another word for glasses. But for me, it could represent a spectacle, meaning like something that is like a sight to behold. So it could just be a matter of you are being given a heads up to pay attention to what you see, and not maybe discounting it. That's a money term, see that, discounting, and not discounting what you're seeing, right? Because maybe you need to clearly see or more accurately see what's going on, right? Because for me, and as a person who wears glasses, right, the glasses are corrective lenses, right? They help us see something better, more clearly, right? So this way we can't say, it reminds me of the adage, so once you see it, you can't unsee it, yeah? So now, going with the literal, the glasses could mean like, okay, there may be something about your physical eyesight that you need to, maybe pay attention to, or work on, or work within that situation or experience, right? But it could also be about, what's the vision that you're holding for your life going forward, right? I'm really anchoring it in on the idea that, this is the season that's wrapping up the year, yeah? And so it could just be a matter of what is your vision for the year ahead, right? For your life in the year ahead, and it may be like, do you have a vision when it comes to your money and finances, right? Right? If you're wanting to maybe get your finances organized, and I've learned this as a life coach in my former work as a life coach, that when people came to me and they wanted to work on their finance, it wasn't really about so they could have more money. It was about what the money would allow them, afford them to do. Yeah? So it could just be a matter of that. So that's what I want to offer with the Eight of Diamonds. That was for Scorpio. And our final card for our final sign this session, Sagittarius, is the Ace of Hearts. This is the home and family card, which is why there's a house depicted on the card, right? So it could just be a matter of, and again, with the holidays coming up, this is a time to maybe, be with family, focus on your home life, your personal life. If you are single, like I am, I'm blissfully single, this for me would be the idea of like, is there some time and attention I need to put on my personal life? I work 2 jobs out in the world, so I would say yes, but this is not my, well, I was going to say this is not my particular card, but it is in a way, because Sagittarius is my rising sign. So this is one of my 3 cards, right? If I go back to the idea that I shared earlier about, taking the cards that represent your sun, moon, and rising signs and give yourself a 3-card reading, this would be my rising sign. This would be my 3rd card, right? So for me, I will include myself now that I've already started that. So this would be, for me, a focus on my home life. Maybe actually doing things around the house that maybe I've been putting off because I've been so busy, right? It also is about the home. The home is about comfort, right? As a symbol, this represents comfort. So where do you feel most comfortable in your life? Or how can you create maybe a better sense of comfort in your life, right? For me, it reminds me about, maybe being at a stage where you are feeling at home in your body. Yeah, you are comfortable with yourself as a person. It happens for me the older that I get. I'm 56 now. I'm going to be 57 next year. And the older that I get, the more comfortable I get with who I am as a person, right? I couldn't say that in my 20s and 30s because I was uber self-conscious. Once I turned 50, I'm like, I was about to swear. I didn't want to give that self-consciousness that much time and attention anymore. I didn't want to give it that much headspace, right? I really didn't care at this point what people thought about me or the way I expressed myself. I didn't care. I still cared to some degree, but not as much. You know what I mean? It wasn't going to make or break me. Yeah? So it could just be a matter of that this message is for you. Is about how could you allow yourself, or what would you be willing to do to allow yourself the feeling of being at home with yourself, the feeling of being more comfortable with yourself, right? And that's what I want to offer to Sagittarius with the Ace of Hearts. And that wraps up this month's Lightning Round Oracle Card Pull session. If you hung out with me this entire time, I want to say thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time as we're moving into the days of gift giving, yeah? I want to thank you for the gift of your time. I know how valuable your time is. You could choose to do many things with your time. And if you chose to spend it with me, I take that in high regard. And I don't say that lightly. Yeah? Okay. So, James and Mitchell, I'm wrapping up this month's Lightning Round Oracle Card Pull session. Please join me in this space for our next Oracle Card Pull session, our next Lightning Round next month. And until then, I'm wishing those of you who are celebrating Yule a happy Yule. Those of you who are celebrating Christmas, I'm wishing you a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas. And those of you who are going to be setting intentions for the new year as this year closes and the new year starts, I'm supporting you energetically in those intentions, yes? And so, until then, take care and have a great day.